already started on the tile, but I wanted to, didn't get a chance to make a video when I first started it. But I want to go ahead and show you how I've been laying it out, what I've learned as I've been going. So these are large format tiles, and it requires a large format mortar. And so I've been using a large format mortar that's got a polymer modified to allow for a little bit of flexibility, especially since these are so big. And I've been using a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch trowel. So I'm using that right now to create my notches. And I'm going to go ahead and lay some out and show you how I've been doing it. So what you want to do once you get the mortar mixed up, basically the same mix as I was doing with the cement backer board, but I've just been laying it down very similar, except I'm only doing one tile at a time, so I'm only putting enough for one tile. Just because I want to go in different directions, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. So when you're laying the tile, I'm going to go ahead and kind of spread it out before I actually make the notches. Makes it a little bit easier. You want your notches to go in this direction so that when you put it down, you actually put it down right up against the other tile, and then you pull back as you push down. So what it does is it collapses those ridges so that it takes up all that airspace that the notches have made. If you do your troweling this way to where your lines are running this direction, which is the length of parallel to the length of that tile, then you have to slide it this direction, which it requires that many more rows that you're going to have to make sure you've collapsed down. This way you only have a couple of rows that you have to collapse down to make sure that you get good contact with the tile. And what I found is I initially did the first tile and I just did the troweling and then I put it down, but then I picked it back up to see what kind of contact I was getting. And I was getting good contact right on each side, but in the middle I wasn't getting really good contact. I don't know if it was just because I wasn't pushing down hard enough or what, but with these large tiles and this a good amount of airspace that's there, it's hard to close that airspace up. And so what I've been doing is actually back buttering these tiles. So kind of rather than talk about it, let me show you what I'm doing. So now that I've got it down, kind of start here and go at a 45 and work your way across. See, there's some gaps here. See, there's some spaces where it's not filled in with material, so you don't want that because that means there's not enough material there. You won't get good contact right here or here. And so you might have problems down the road if you don't get good contact. So what you want to do is go ahead and scrape it again and just make sure you get the rest of the material. And as you scrape it, you're taking off the high spots, but then you're finding where your low spots are, and then you have material here to kind of go back over. So we can go back over with this excess material. And sometimes what it'll do is it will fill in some of the gaps that you had the previous time you swiped it. And sometimes you can just go this direction just to fill in some of those gaps. Knowing that the next time your final pass is going to be the direction that you want. Take this tile and we'll get some material on her. And just spackle it on. actually work from the bottom back up. Just kind of like you're spackling mud on the wall, drywall. Same principle. I'm not putting a whole bunch on, but I'm just making sure I get it stuck to it. Okay, so now that we got it on there, and it's pretty clean, we'll put it right up against there, right into the corner, and up against both edges, and then set it down. And as you're pushing down on it, you're pulling away from the tile. And actually what that does is it doesn't allow you to have a whole bunch of material in the gap, because you want to be able to grout there later. And if you get a bunch of it in there, you're going to have to scrape it out, which I've been having to push down pretty hard with this stuff to make sure I get good contact, and some of it squeezes out, so you have to clean those areas out, but we'll show you that in a second. So I'm pulling away to collapse it down, and I'm actually kind of using my knee and my body weight to kind of move it around, because this stuff is heavy. It's hard to push the air gaps out. And now I kind of scoot it back. And you're just trying to make it level with the other tiles. And you can use a level to kind of see where you are. So we're looking pretty good. So now that I got it kind of where I want it, I just scrape this excess out. Quick tip for you when you're laying tile is that, you know, when you're doing your tile work, if you're using natural stone or some variation of stone that has different patterns in it that's not uniform, is to make sure that when you are selecting the tile to lay down, that you are pulling from multiple boxes. So if, for example, I have about 21 boxes that I am utilizing, and for this tile particularly, it's a porcelain tile, which is ink jetted, and it's got some variations, some very different versions of the pattern in the tile, so that it looks like it mimics real stone. But it's probably more important when you actually are using real stone, because there are a lot more variations with real stone. So when you are selecting the tile to lay down, you should be pulling from multiple boxes. Don't just pull one box and lay it down, because the next box may be a completely different color or a different variation or a shade off. So when you're actually pulling them, you should have like, if you have natural stone, I would pull from a lot of the boxes, actually, you know, maybe 7 to 10 of the boxes, and actually take them out physically from the box and stack them. Like grab one of these and stack it, then grab one of those and stack it on top, then grab one of those and stack it on top and stack it, you know, that way you have a stack of tiles that you're actually utilizing that is a mixture of all the boxes that you've purchased. So that way the variation between the tile will be somewhat randomly dispersed throughout the floor or the wall, whatever you happen to be tiling. So that's basically what you know, you need to keep in mind when you're doing it. Some people don't think about it, and you start laying it out, and then you've got half of the floor laid out, and all of a sudden you got a change in tile. And how do you account for that? So one thing to keep in mind before you start the job will save you a lot of aggravation and just headaches in the future. So just some quick tips on laying tile.